MMAOddsBreaker Frank Trigg. Of course, we're going to talk to the bully Ricardo Lamas this week. Coming up with Dennis Bermudez. First big fight in Mexico City. Were you disappointed when the main event got pulled apart because of Cain's injury?
Yeah, I was. I was excited to see that fight. I was excited to fight on the same card with Cain. He's huge down there in Mexico, so it was kind of, a shot to the event. But I think we're still going to put on a great show. I think the Mexican fans are still going to be excited for it. And, they still got me. They still got Kelvin to root for. So, we're going to carry the event.
How important has it been to get to Mexico for the UFC? Not just Latin America, because obviously they're down in Brazil, but really just to get to Mexico. It's been a long stretch for them to get there, and it seemed like for a little bit they really weren't pushing hard. But you would know better than anybody else because they would want you obviously to be involved in that kind of process. How difficult was it to get down there, and how important is it to finally be there?
It's taken a while. It's something that I would talk with Sean or whoever back and forth. As fights went along. Because you'd keep hearing rumors like, oh, they're going to be in Mexico this year. And for a few years, it was like that. Yeah. They had sent me down a couple times to do some press for them. So it was just kind of slowly building up. And it's something that they wanted to do for a long time. I just think they were waiting for the right timing to do it. And I'm glad it's finally here.
It's going to be a great card. I mean, they put, obviously, every time they go to someplace new, they always want to stack it in a way where that culture will embrace it. They've obviously did a good job. And with Mark Hunt being the replacement, they've still got a great main event, being put together. Jake Ellenberger, Kelvin Gastelum is the co-main event. How do you see that fight coming apart? Like, do you have a favorite in that fight? Have you had, because you're in training camp, have you had any time to actually look at this fight as it's coming together?
I haven't really had a chance to look at the Gastelum Ellenberger fight. I think both guys are super tough. They both impressed me a lot in all their fights. And, Kelvin is just like, every time you think he's going up against a tough guy, like, oh, I don't think he could win this fight, he pulls it off.
I've lost a lot of money.
I've
lost a lot of money because of Kelvin. I bet against him a couple different times, and he's completely whooped my ass. It's been like, I'm just sitting at home going, I got nothing for this. There's no, the judge screwed me. The ref stopped at the wrong time. It's just been like, wow, Calvin just beat me up. I just got to take this loss. He is one of those guys that beats guys.
He's got that Mexican heart, man, that carries us a long way.
He's a great kid too. He's fun. He's fun to just kind of watch and see how he interacts with the crowd and stuff. And he's fun. He's fun. But how is it going to be for you going out of Mexico? We're talking about how important it is to be in Mexico. Now you guys are there. You're one of the fan favorites down there. It's going to be a big deal for you. Calvin seems to have fun with the crowd right now, but it's going to be way bigger when it's down there, when it's in Mexico. It's going to be so much more happening on, especially for you guys. Now that Cain is off the card, you and Calvin are the two big ones that everyone's going to be following along. Do you think it's going to be a little bit distracting when you get down there?
No, not at all. For me, the bigger the crowd, the better I do, I feel. Whenever I fight in these huge venues, whenever I have people cheering me on and everything, it gives me that extra push. So it's not going to be any extra pressure on me. If anything, it's going to help me more than anything.
Let's talk about Dennis Bermudez. Break him down for us as an opponent. What do you see when you watch tape?
I see an aggressive fighter, a guy that puts a lot of pressure on his opponents. He's constantly moving forward. He mixes up really well with his strikes into his takedowns. And it kind of seems like he just mentally breaks his opponents, just from the pressure that he puts on them. He's a young, tough kid. But with all that being said, I kind of feel I have a little advantage in every aspect of the sport. In the striking department, on the ground, and wrestling. I feel like I'm just a little bit better than him in all areas.
Both you guys are 14-3, but what fight of his 14 victories, or maybe it was one of his losses, did you look at and take the most from it? You got the most, okay, this is what's going to happen for us. Like, what was that one fight you kind of watched the most out of all of
them? Two fights that I watched really closely were him against Matt Grice and him against Max Holloway. I was there live for the Holloway fight, and those two fights could have went either way. I wouldn't have been upset if they would have given it to Grice or to Holloway. So I definitely took some things away from those two fights that I watched. And, coming up now is kind of when I start to watch more film on my opponents, just so it's fresher in my head leading up into the fight. So I'm going to, as I sit down and watch more of his fights.
A lot of you're the opposite of most guys. We've talked about this before, where a lot of guys, right in the beginning of training camp, they're watching as much tape as possible, and then as they get towards the end of training camp, they stop watching tape. You're the reverse. You kind of start watching tape towards the end of your training camp to make everything fresh in your head, but you let your coaches develop your game plan. So they're watching tape earlier. You trust them enough to go. They know what they're looking at. They know what's going to happen. They put the tape together, and then you just kind of do what you're told. And then now you're going to start watching tape to make it fresh. Why do you wait till the end to watch it? What's your reasoning behind that?
Like I said, just so as it gets closer to the fight, I think more about the fight. So watching the tapes will give me, better scenarios in my head of what's actually maybe going to happen in the fight. And like you said, my trainers have been watching film on him. Every time we do pad work, every time we do drills, it's all catered to what they've come up with from watching his fights. So when I get in the cage, I'm like a video game. I listen to my corners. Whatever they yell at, whatever they tell me to do is what I do. So it's for me. I'm very well prepared. I feel like the things that I've been training are exactly the things that are going to happen in the fight and the things that I'm going to have to do. So I'm not really worried. I don't worry too much about, overanalyzing people's tapes. I'll watch, a few of his fights, and then that'll be it.
Ricardo, thanks for spending some time with us here on MMAOddsBreaker. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to see this fight November 15th down in Mexico City. It's going to be a great card. It's a great pay-per-view. It's going to be amazing to watch this UFC 180. Good luck, Ricardo. We'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thanks a lot, Frank.